I have dreams of a rose and falling down a long flight of stairs. Oh. That was not worth it. So when I was a wee little lad, there was a video store called Showtime Video, and this was back in the day when video stores were flourishing before all this digital crap. And right in the immediate front corner, there was the horror section, and they had a pretty decent selection of horror movies. It was all VHS basically. They always used to have this really cool bargain bin. It was literally right next to the horror section. I watched Fright Night for the first time through that bargain bin because they had the original VHS, which was one of those really weird covers that opened from the side. It was the original edition. Kind of wish I still had it, but at any rate, I bought it for $4.99, watched it, loved it, and also I bought the third Omen movie for $3.99 and watched it for the first time, and this movie, The Exorcist III, $4.99, purchased it, watched it at home, absolutely loved it. I think that this is a sequel, The Exorcist III. I really think this is a sequel that a lot of people have overlooked. The second one was so, abysmally shitty. It wasn't even, the type of movie that, you can watch and make fun of, that you can, have fun making fun of. There are certain select things you can enjoy, but the movie moves at a snail's pace. And that kind of hinders all the really lame shit that happens in it, because it's just it's a fucking boring movie. It's literally inferior on just about every single level. Now, believe it or not, I had actually not seen The Exorcist II at this time. That was the last one that I watched, and I saw that The Exorcist III was at Showtime Video. It was $4.99, and it said that it was based off of William Peter Blatty's novel Legion. And I'm like, huh. So I went online, I looked it up, and it turns out that the author of the original novel of The Exorcist actually did, in fact, write a sequel that was called Legion, which I bought after the fact and read, and it is a good book, although it is a little bit different from the movie. However, The Exorcist III is based off of Legion, so it is a direct sequel to the original. It's as though the second one never happened, and thank God. Nevertheless, I think that when this movie came out, a lot of people were like, fuck this, forget it. The first one was good, but anything after is just gonna suck. But it actually is really good. George C. Scott is the lead actor, and he plays Detective Kinderman, who was a character in the original story, albeit it was a different actor. Brad Dourif plays the Gemini Killer. And I don't want to get too in-depth on how that whole thing works, but basically he's the guy who did the voice of Chucky, for those of you who are not seasoned horror fanatics. And his performance in this movie was chilling, all right? And, as a movie, it wasn't really, in your face, you know what I mean? You had the first movie with, the infamous crucifix scene and stuff like that, but The Exorcist III was a lot more subtle. And there were very graphic, descriptions of things that had happened after the fact, but in terms of actual blood and gore, there's really not a terrible amount of it. There's one pretty juicy scene towards the end, but other than that, I mean, the subject matter of what was being dealt with was, really disturbing, and I think that's what merited the R rating. But I think that this film, with the tiniest tweak, with a sneeze of editing, could have been PG-13. That's just me though. But this movie's absolutely fucking great. It has more to do with the actual original Exorcist than the book did, because in the book, the demon from the original didn't play really a role, and in this movie it did. The one thing that I will say about this movie that was kind of a bummer is there was a character called Father Morning, and he's in literally 3 scenes in the entire movie, okay? And they basically describe him as being this section of the Vatican's number one exorcist dude. And he's actually performed an exorcism before. And it was so fucking terrifying that his hair turned white overnight. But he accomplished the exorcism. He sent the demon back to hell. And he, and he is basically just a fucking badass. But that's all we really get on him. I mean, they introduce him very briefly, and the other characters, the characters of Father Dyer and of Detective Kinderman and how, like, on the anniversary of Damien Karras's death after the original exorcism from the original film, like, the development of their characters and how they've reacted to this and grown, or maybe not so much, over the years from this was very well realized. There was actually a lot of good, like, humor between the two of them, you know, a little bit of sarcasm, a little bit of banter, and considering it was like a cop, like a detective, and a priest, you know, both of which had been kind of, I guess, hardened by the shit that they've seen. So it's like they were just kind of like they both had the same kind of similar, like, sort of, I don't want to say like sarcastic personality, but like, I don't know, like wise ass. They had a similar wise assery, camaraderie thing going on, you know. Their characters were really well realized. And that's why I was kind of bummed out that they didn't do more with Father Morning. He's just introduced. It's like suddenly he just knows that the demon is coming, and he knows exactly where to go, and he just shows up and he does this fucking exorcism thing, and I'm not going to tell you how it ends, but it's like, I just really felt that they had an opportunity with a really cool character to, like, flesh him out. I mean, I understand they were kind of going for, like, a subtle tone, but they could have gotten more feedback from him as a character. Like, they could have gone to see him before the exorcism took place. So it's like you could have a really good, from his perspective, like, instead of just stories, instead of just mythology about what a badass he is, you could have gotten, like, that actual fucking, like, you know. But at any rate, this movie is really, really, really good. I mean, it's very well crafted. It's very creepy, and I understand that this isn't a very popular opinion. And as I've covered in other videos, such as Witchy Woman, you know, I do understand that the original Exorcist is the OG. I understand that for 1973, that was some hairy shit, man. Like, I mean, hell, by today's standards, it's hairy shit. But honest to godly, The Exorcist III actually scared me more than the original Exorcist. I'm not saying it was a better movie. I think the original Exorcist was a better movie, but I think that The Exorcist III is scarier. It's really eerie when it wants to be eerie, you know. It's serious when it needs to be serious. I mean, some of the periphery acting is not the best, like Kinderman's family, like his wife and his, you know, daughter and their grandmother, like, they're all kind of like, but they're not like really big characters. But seriously, like, overall, if you want like a good, like, kind of satanic horror movie or something like that, and you've not seen this, I really would recommend that you go out and just rent it, because it really is a pretty fucking awesome movie, and it is a very worthy sequel to the original. And I would also recommend going out and getting the book Legion and reading that, because I don't even think that most people know that book exists.